Hi everybody again, this is Chris Feehan from the ECG Armory. Today we're going to do some finishing work on the last couple of parts we have to get done. I know it's been a while, but we're getting to the finish line now, and I'm going to call this episode A Million Little Things. These are all the little final steps you have to do on all the different parts to get everything together. We've already done all the snap plates, all the snap making, assembled all the parts, glued all the parts. Now it's just the little things I want to get out of the way so that we're sure that everything's going to come together in the end and we have every little part managed and accounted for so that we can do a nice quick assembly and get everything done and assembled correctly. The first thing we're going to do today is the Frown Mesh. The Frown Mesh goes inside the helmet and it kind of hides being able to see the person inside. As you can see, I painted the Voker and the Frown here, but you can see right through the holes and you'd be able to see the person behind there. Most people use some kind of mesh behind there. What we're going to use is screen material. This is plastic screen material that you use for a screen door or a screen window. And I usually like to double or triple this up and hot glue it right in that spot. So I'm going to try to make a template out of this material that I used the other day to make the lens template. And I'm going to draw the rough shape of the frown area on here so that I know what I have to do to cut out the frown piece. And then I use a little hot glue to hold it all down. Some people use E6000 for this. I like the hot glue better because you can undo it down the line. You can heat it up and get rid of it if you need to, and it also really holds well. I've had some of the same Frown Mesh in my helmet for years and it hasn't moved, it hasn't done anything, and it really just stays in there. But I want to try to trace exactly what the shape is so that I get the right material cut. So I'm going to, from the inside, I'm going to put this plastic sheet here and just my eye trace where the frown is exactly, so that I know I'm cutting a piece that's going to cover the entire frown. And then we're going to hot glue that in there. That's a very rough drawing, but just so I know what I'm going to cut out with the frown material is going to fit on that area. Now I like to do it with the lines, you know, lined up with the frown, and I like to fold it over, as I said, two or three times. So I'm going to try to do a three-fold here. Fold it 3 times and then cut out that general shape. And if I can, I like to leave the fold in there at the very tippy point so that this all stays together. So there we go. I just folded that over 3 times. I'm going to roughly just see where the tip of the frown is, and I'm going to cut about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch all the way around it, and that's going to be the area that I'm going to glue. I'm just going to make a rough, very rough cut. Again, I want to make sure that I get it about 3 levels of mesh here before I cut it. And I want to try to maintain that edge of that first fold. Let me see if I can do that here. Let me flip this around. And the reason why I want to keep that fold is that way it kind of keeps it all together and it keeps it in line. And it makes it easier for it to stay together as I'm gluing it. So basically I'm going to cut about, like I said, about a 1/2 inch all the way around the frown area. Because that's where I'm actually going to glue. And I'm going to just put hot glue and put it really generously in that area, and then push it down a little bit with my hands so that I'm sure that it's going to stay there for basically forever. Again, I want to make sure I keep this all together. want to cut this area here. Again, leaving a little bit of room, but I want to keep it all pretty much stable together. So let's see how that's looking. I'm not going to use that template. I'm just using that as kind of a guide to get the right shape. Let me get this material out of the way. I've got my 3 levels here. I want to make sure all 3 of them are hitting into the frown. I'm just going to lay that down and see how it's looking here. It's looking pretty good without too much excess. Again, it helps to get the shape first so that you're not getting it, you're not just putting a huge amount of mesh there that's unnecessary. So I'm going to hold that tight with my fingers against the frown area. And then I'm going to use hot glue around the open spots to glue that down. Let me just make sure I got that in there good. I got that nice and tight against the frown area, and I have enough room on both sides to catch it with the glue. And it does look like I'm doing very good there. This side looks like it's separating a little. I'm just going to try to get it lined up again while I'm keeping this pressed down against the holes. Just shifting it over a little bit because it's looking like it's a little closer on one side than the other. Because you don't want any of the glue showing. Okay, so I'm just going to hold that down with my fingers. I already got my glue gun ready. I already have it heating up, so I'm just going to start gluing just around the edges. And it's going to bleed right through and hit the mesh. Okay, I'm going to lift up this side very carefully while I'm holding down the other side and make a bead of glue that I'm going to press into. I'm making a pretty generous bead of glue all the way around through the teeth, below the teeth, and you got to work quick with this because it cools very quickly. So I'm going to do one side and then I'm going to do the other side. I already went through this stick already. Hold on, let me get the next stick open. And in here. Okay, so I'm going all around it with some glue. And then I'm going to press this down onto it, and it should ooze through the mesh and stick down pretty tightly. It's not going to be a pretty sight, but it really does hold very well when you do it correctly. And that's also why I'm wearing these safety gloves, because you don't want to burn your fingers if you can avoid it too. Okay, so that's sticking very nice. Trying to get a nice seal there. Getting some strings, that's okay. Just making sure I'm not seeing anything through the teeth. That's looking very good. Okay, so now we're going to do the other side. And again, I'm going to lift up the mesh, put some glue down, and then squish this into that. And try not to burn myself with the hot glue. And then we're going to go crazy. Then we're going to just be squashing glue down all over the place. I'm just making a bead right around the teeth. Then I'm going to press this fabric down into. And we can finish that off and make it look a little nicer after the fact. Okay, now I'm going to get that frown mesh in line here. really tightly against the face as I press down into the glue. Okay, that's looking very good. Okay, again, not the prettiest, but I'm going to go back over it now with the hot glue in the areas where the teeth aren't, just to add some more glue to keep it down. I'm just making a bead all the way around, trying not to get any strings as I'm doing it. I'm going to use the other end of my pencil here just to push down so I don't get anything on my hands here. Just pushing down into the glue and making a nice seal there around this entire mesh material. Okay, the middle tooth looks like it's a little loose, so I'm going to put some more hot glue there. And the key is that I really don't want to see the glue, so I'm going to try to keep it away from the teeth itself. Okay, I'm just going to press down with the back of the pencil here as it's drying. We're going to need another stick, just about out. I'm going to do one right down the middle between the teeth just to make sure that we're securing that piece. And this lets air in, but it also again hides the face underneath so you don't have people seeing your face underneath there. I'm just going to use my pencil here and just push down in certain spots just to make sure it's adhering. Yeah, that's adhering very nicely. We're just going to wait for it to cool for a second. I want that nice and tight. Pushing down one little spot here. This one spot's not staying down. I might have to give it a little more glue. Okay, let's look at it from the front now and just see how it's coming out. Now it's looking really good. You can see the mesh there now. And that really does obscure it very well, and it still lets you breathe in there. Now the other thing we might explore if you're interested is doing fans. I have a very simple and effective solution for doing fans. I use an off mosquito fan for my fans and my helmets, and it's a really easy, elegant solution. I can show you how to do that after we're done doing the frown mesh here. I just got to get those strings out of there. Yeah, that's looking very good. Again, it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it does do a nice job. It does keep it nice and steady, and it's not going to go anywhere. We'll make sure we don't have any parts sticking up. I see some parts sticking up here. I'm just going to hit it with a little more glue. I'm just going to do a bead all the way around now, just to make sure that it's staying and the glue's adhering to the helmet. You also have to be very careful not to use too much and heat up the helmet. You want to make sure that it's only doing the heat inside. Okay, I just made a bead all the way around. I'm going to have to wait for that to dry, to cool for a few seconds. It's looking very nice. Okay, good. We got the Frown Mesh on there. We should be good to go with that. And we can get started with a few other tasks with the helmet. The other big thing we have to do with the helmet is the padding. And there's a really easy solution for that, which is, as I mentioned last time, was these helmet pads. And I like to do all this stuff before I do the lenses, because I like to leave the lenses for the very last step because I don't like to get them messed up or get fingerprints on them. So I'm going to do that next. I'm going to do the helmet pads. And what I basically do is just make a cross right down the middle of the helmet and right across the sides of the helmet with some hook side Velcro. So I'm just going to size up exactly how much I'm going to need here. Let me take out the whole roll and we can determine how much we're going to need just by eye. And basically I go right from the back of the helmet, the very back where it curves, all the way to the front. And that's where I'm going to put all my my pads. The pads are like a fabric side Velcro. So you can easily, very easily, just stick them in the helmet wherever you want. So just for your own comfort, you can figure out what's the best place for you to have the pads, and then you can put them in those places. I also use this to kind of stabilize the connection. There's a line between right above the eyes to the top of the helmet, and I like to make sure that I get that down exactly where I want it, and that's when I put the Velcro, and that'll hold that as well. So we're going to make sure, we're going to line it up and make sure that that's reaching there as well. So let me start taking off the strip here and just basically slap in the Velcro. I can make the minor adjustments later on the helmet itself. So I'm going to go right from the tippy top of the eyes straight across. I'm holding it down with my fingers. I'm kind of pressing as I go. Straight across to the back of the helmet. And then I just press that down. So now I have a strip of Velcro that goes all the way across the whole length of the helmet. And that's basically what's going to connect most of my pads. Now there are some pads that you're going to have to do for the sides. So then I do a cross. I do a line here that comes down on the ears. I'm going to have to cut for where these screws are. And then I do a line for the other side. So I'm going to just measure that out quick. Just roughly with my hands, I'm going to put that right to the middle. See where that lands on the ears, and I'm going to stop down around here, right where this line is. Let me just fold that over, make a cut, and I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side, so I'm going to make the exact same size for the other side. Now the only tricky bit here is I'm going to have to count for where those screws are. So before I actually peel this off and stick this in, I'm going to line it up and see where those screws are going to land, because I'm going to have to cut out a couple of spots for where those screws are going to land. Just a couple of little holes. So let me just line up exactly where I want that to hit on the sides here and figure out where those screws are going to be. Okay, so I'm just lining this up, seeing how it lines up with the screws. And I'm going to have to make a slightly angled cut, so let me just do that quick. I'm going to go like this, so it sits flush with the top part of the helmet. And I'm only going to have to cut a few little pieces out. I'm going to cut right down the middle. And that's still going to be able to hold the helmet padding, so it's not going to affect it too much. Let me make that cut, and then we'll stick this in. Now it's hard for me to show you this as I'm doing it, but I will show it to you after what I did here. So I figured out that this little spot is where those screws are, so I have to cut out this little piece like this, and you'll see when I put it in how it fits in there perfectly, and it's going to line up with the screws exactly. I'm going to peel this off, start laying this in. Let me just make sure I get it lined up properly. Oh, it hits right where these screws are. It's very hard to get this Velcro off once you put it down, because it's industrial black Velcro. A little off, I'm going to have to reset my angle slightly. I want to get it right flush with the other one. Just make sure that's in there good. And again, I'm using my towel here because I'm going to be manipulating the helmet a little bit. Now see, there's a cross line now coming down that way. I'm going to do the same on the other side. Sometimes I'll put another one here if I need to find another place for a pad, but not usually. So let me get this next one in here and see how that's going to line up with these screws. This one doesn't look like I'll need to cut it, so I'm just going to go like this. I see where the screws land. I'm just going to make a cut there to cut out that little section where the screws are. Okay, and I'm going to have to cut this a little short. So I'm going to cut this side a little shorter, and I'm going to cut a little hole right in the middle where the screws are. To leave room for where the screws are going to pop out. Now the screws are going to be covered anyway by the Velcro and the pads, so it's not really going to make any difference, but I want to make accommodations for them so this lays flat and it doesn't interfere with them. Line that up with the middle, and then I'll show you how it looks when it's all done. Very close, but a little off, so I'm going to have to do a little adjustment on the bottom here. I'm going to have to snip off that bottom piece. And I'll show you what that looks like when it's all done. Any of these other little pieces I can use around the screw just in case I have to catch a helmet pad or something. And I'll show you what this looks like when it's all done. I just want to make sure I'm pressing it all the way down and getting it nice and tight. The whole way down. Even if there is a little space. Okay, so now you see I have a cross there. I have a line there and a line across. And then I just look at the helmet pads and I figure out what's the best placement for the helmet pads. And again, you can move them because they're fabric. Now they come with these little pads, but I found it problematic because once you put the pads in, they have to go there. What I like about this system is you can just by eye just stick it in. Like I'm going to put this pad right in the top in the middle. And that's going to stay. And then you can decide, okay, I need some around the edges. And I'll show you what the other helmet looks like just to give you an idea what it looks like finished. And what's beautiful is that these are completely adjustable. You can move these around as needed. You can see in this one I used black pads. For whatever reason, when I ordered them on Amazon, I could not get the black ones for this one. But I'm going to try to mimic what I did there. I put the big circle on the top. I can put the square piece right in the front here. And that's going to hold on with the Velcro. That sticks in there very well. I can use another big flat one in the back here. And then I use one on the side to make like a crown. Another one on this side. And then two for the ears, right where those screws are, to protect your ears from getting nicked by those screws. So really, that's a 5-10 minute helmet pad solution that looks neat. It's very, very comfortable. I can try it on right now and just see if I even got the pads right. But that feels really snug. Doesn't wobble too much. It's got a nice feel to it. And I think that's how I'm going to use it going forward. So that's a very easy way to do a helmet system, a helmet padding system. And literally only takes about 5-10 minutes. Now I do have some extra pads. I think I had some extra ones for the other one as well. Again, if that's not enough padding for you, if you want to pad, you know, the back area here, if that's wobbling on your head, if there's another area that's wobbly, you can always add these extra pads in there and just put some extra Velcro wherever you want it. Okay, now the last step for the helmet that I have to do, or the two last steps, is do the decals and the mic tips. Now I painted the mic tips in my last video, and they're right here. And the last piece I have to do with those is put in the little grill that goes in the mic tips, and then I can attach them into the helmet. And I'm probably going to just use some CA glue and the kicker to quickly attach them. I just want to size them up and see how they're going to fit in there. I might have to do some bending and some adjustment to get these mesh things to fit in the armor properly, fit in the mic tips properly. Okay, so already I'm looking at it, see it's too big to fit in there. I can try to squish it in, but I don't want to do that. I'm going to have to do some bending with the needle nose pliers. Let me get my glasses on so I can make sure I'm seeing what I'm doing. So what I'm going to have to do is on a couple of these little prongs, I'm going to have to bend them down slightly just to make it easier to fit in there. So this is a little bit of a procedure, but you can get this done and quickly get it glued in and attached. So some of these prongs I'm going to just bend down. Try not to break off any of the mesh material here. And there's a little track inside there that this has to fit in. And if I can get it just right, it'll pop right in there. So I'm just bending down a couple of these ends with the needle nose pliers, seeing if that'll get it in there. And I think we're just about there. I see one other piece here that probably can be pushed in. I don't want to lose that piece there. Just my finger, I'm just pushing it in a little bit. I'm just curving the end a little bit all around so that it sits better in the mic tip assembly. Just curving it down just slightly on the edges. Again, I don't want to break the material or lose any of those crossbars there. Now, there's a little track that goes all around there that I want to try to get this in. And then I want to glue it in place right in that track. So it's tricky to get it in there. But I think this one's just about ready. Let me start on the next one. I'll keep that one with that one. Let me start on this one and just see how much I have to bend this one down. And this one's going to need a little more bending too. So I'm just taking the needle nose and bending around the edges, just slightly, bending them in, so that this will fit in that track. And allow me to like stick it in there. Now for this assembly I do use the CA glue because I need something that'll harden very quickly. So it's pretty much an instant procedure once I hit it with the glue. I'm just going around, just shaping this a little bit around the edges, giving it a little curve so that it sits snugly in that track. I went a little far on that one, but I think it's going to fit. Let me see. Okay, so that's going to fit in there nicely, I think. I'm just going to have to pop it in with some glue in that track. Let me just see if there's any areas that look problematic. And I think I'm getting it in there. I'm just working that in very carefully. Oh, I went a little too far, so now I got to pop it out and start again. Let me try to bend this a little bit. Just my fingernail. I'm just getting it in the little track there and and it should stop on its own when it gets in the track. Oop, there we go. Oop, too far. I want it to float right in the top area there. I've got to work it a little more cautiously. Just with my fingernail, I'm just getting it right in that track there. And that's about the area I want it, right there. So I'm going to try to get that in there and keep it there. Let me carefully do the next one, and then we're going to glue it. And to glue it, I'm just going to put a little bead of CA glue all around the edges, and then hit it with the kicker, and it should stay in there forever, relatively. Okay, so I'm just going to work this with my fingernail, just get that in there. Try to bend these down. That's why I'm curving them a little bit, just to make them easier to get in there, because they usually cut this mesh slightly bigger than the hole. Okay, that one popped right in there. So that one's right in the track, that little outside track that's there. Okay, so now we've got to use the CA glue very carefully. Very carefully. Let me get my gloves. Let me get a glove. And this should be a very quick procedure. Let me get my helmets out of the way. Let me do this. And again, this is the final step on these mic tips, so we can get them in the armor, in the helmet. Make sure we get a good flow here. Oh, this one's not even open. Let me use the other one that's open, even though the tip is probably not as good. I have a smaller one. Hold on. Let me look at this one. Is this one open? Oh, this one's bad. Yeah, sometimes with this glue, it'll harden. This one's completely hardened. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to use the tip from this, because this tip is shot. Let me see if I can get this tip off. I've been using this tip for quite some time on this glue, and the glue is still good because I can still see it's liquid in there, but the This has had it. I take that off completely and maybe reuse this tip, because I think this tip is a lot cleaner. And it looks like it's clear. Yeah, you can see this glue. Unfortunately, it doesn't store well. It's completely hardened inside, which is a shame, because that was about a half a thing of glue. Okay, we got a flow there. So what I'm going to do is carefully, just around the edge, put some glue in that track. Not a ton. Just enough to hold this in place. A couple of key points here. So we got it just around the edge. A little bead of that glue. I can see it. It's hard to see it on the camera, but it's just a little bead of that glue. I'm going to wipe this on the towel here just to get off any excess, and then I'm going to hit it with the kicker, and it's going to harden instantly. We'll just wait for that to dry. I'm going to set that down. Get off some of the excess kicker. That's all going to come out of there, and I might have to touch up the head a little with some paint, but that's fine. I'll let that sit for a second to dry, and I'm going to do the other one. Let me make sure I get any of that off my hands before I do the next one. And let me throw this other glue out. Okay, now I'll do the other one here. Again, I'm going to hold this very gingerly and just put a little bit of glue right in that track. Just getting off some excess on the towel here. There's a little excess on there I gotta get off. That looks pretty good. Now I'm gonna hit it with the kicker. And that's gonna be in there pretty much forever. Let me drain out any kicker out of there. Dab that off. Now again, I might have to go back over this now and do a little touch-up on the piece itself, because that does sometimes take off a little paint with the reaction with the glue. Yeah, I can see it took off a little bit of paint, but it should be okay. And that's now in there permanently, and we still have the white inside. So if you really look at it from the front in the light, you can still see the white tip inside, which is nice. See the other one here? That's looking good. Okay, now again, I'll probably touch that up with some paint later, but right now I'm just going to take this and attach it into the helmet itself. Let me just dry it off. Make sure there's no more kicker on here. Dry that off. And we can start putting those into the helmet itself. Okay, so let's just unscrew this. Carefully put it in the helmet. And just screw it on from the back. I'm going to just be careful. First one in, the second one in, and again I'm going to have to touch up that edge a little. I can see with the glue took off some of the paint. And that's to be expected with this. You really can't paint it, and, you can't put the grill in until you paint it because it goes beyond where the grill is. So I'm just putting that in and screw that down. I'm just hand tightening that. And I might have to turn it around to get the angle just right. Sometimes these are a little wonky. It looks pretty good. Let's just see if they're pointing in different directions. We're going to have to spin this one around a little bit. Let's try to get the mic tip shape to match the one on the other side. Okay, that's looking pretty good. And again, you can see the white inside, and that should stay pretty stable. Again, I'm going to have to do some touch-up. This one has a little scrape here, and on the front, it's going to need some touch-up. They don't have to look perfect, but I like to have them look pretty finished. Okay, let me put away my glue, and then we'll get started with the decals. Let me put this glue away. I'll save this other bad tip. And put away my kicker. Okay, now the final step here for this, besides the lenses, is the decals themselves. And for the decals, it does come with decals. The kit came with these black stripes. After doing some research on the CRL, those aren't correct. They really should be these kind of matte black stripes, and I managed to get those from Trooper Bay, and I'm going to be using those for the helmet. Now what I'm going to do is, first I'm going to use some isopropyl alcohol to clean the area where I'm putting the decals, and then I'm going to actually apply them. Let me make sure I got the decals handy. Let me start cleaning up my area here, make sure I get all this stuff out of the way. Do some cleanup so we don't have all this stuff in our way. Get these strips out of here. Get our frown piece out of here. Get some of these scraps out of here. And keep that handy because that's the last step we'll be doing is the lenses. And here are the decals we're going to be using. Now these are the ones that are in line with the CRL, and these are for the back traps, these are for the tier traps, and these are for the front traps. There's also the lines for the side, the tube stripes, which are a little different than the ones that came with the helmet itself, so I'm going to make sure I use those. Now just as a reference, I'm going to have the other helmet handy because I spent a lot of time researching that, and this one I did in gray. This new one I'm doing in silver, but this old one I had done in gray, and as you can see here, you can see it's the same tube stripes though. They're these muted tube stripes that are a flat black rather than a shiny black. And I use gray tube stripes to match the Frown stripes. Now, I made a horrible mistake with these. I used stickers for this. It came with a set of stickers. I should have just painted this gray before I put the Frown Mesh in, but I didn't. So I'm going to have to go back at some point and correct that. Also, you can see these mic tips aren't as detailed as the ones on here. The ones on here have the actual mesh, and they have that 3D effect that you can see the little nipple inside. These are just flat, so these are much simpler renditions of the mic tips. And also on this one, I didn't paint the bow curve. I just left it black because that's really how you do it with this paint scheme. But for this one, I like the silver with those popping like that. Okay, let me take off my gloves here. And what I'm going to do is take off this trim just temporarily. I'm going to put this right back on because I want to be able to get, and that's one of the reasons I didn't send this home yet. I didn't fully finish this, is because I want to be able to get this folded down so I can put the decals on. So I'm just going to work this down a little bit, get that off. And I'm going to have to put that back on after I'm done, which shouldn't be a very big deal. Okay, let's get our alcohol ready. Now, I'm using the alcohol because you want to make sure you're using a completely clean surface, and you want to make sure it's completely devoid of any oils or any materials. And you have to use this sparingly. This isopropyl alcohol will also take off the E6000. That's one of the tricks with E6000, is you can use the alcohol to remove it. So I want to be careful not to get this on anything, because it will take off it will start degrading the glue a little bit. So I'm just wiping that with some alcohol. I'm going to wipe this area with some alcohol. And I'm going to wipe the tear area with some alcohol, just to make sure I get anything off there that might be some oils or anything that might interfere with the adhering process. The hardest thing to do when you're doing this, and you can do it with what they call a wet application. You can use soapy water and put them on. I like to just try to risk it and do it with no net kind of way, and just do it as best as I can, and then use a needle to poke out a hole in any areas that I might want to take out some air. So I'm probably going to use that method because that's what I'm comfortable with. You can see this helmet. I wasn't thrilled about it. It has a lot of little nicks and cuts on it and things, but I'm hoping once I shine this up, it's going to look very, very nice. And that's what we're going to do as the last step today, is just some general touch-up and some polishing to make sure that everything looks as good as possible. Now, I'm also going to put this on my fingers. You really shouldn't touch this stuff too much, especially when it's 90%, but I'm just going to put a little on my hands to get any oils and stuff off my hands. I'm going to just wipe it right off. I'm just taking that right off. I just want to make sure I have no oils or anything on my hands as I'm putting these on. Okay, now with the tube stripes, I'm going to cut this in half because I want to do one at a time. And I'm going to cut it with a little space on both sides. Now the tube stripes should be this way, curving away towards the back of the helmet. And these look like the painted ones, so these have that nice kind of quirkiness to them, that they look like they may have been painted on. And it's almost identical to the ones I have here, which I think I also got on Trooper Bay. And you want to put these about here, right into the back of the helmet. I'm actually going to take off the front one. I'm not crazy about that one. And I'm going to take off the back one, because I'm only going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. They give you 15. You can get away with 13. I think for this space, I'm only going to need 13, because it's going to get to a point where there's no more space for it to go. Now you want to have this about a ½ inch away from the top, so I'm going to use that as a guide, and I'm going to put it about here, so it lines up with the point here. Let me just see how that's going to look. I'm just trying to visualize. You can see just barely through the paper what it's going to look like, and I'm just seeing if that looks like it's appropriate, and that does look good. So I'm going to put that in line. I'm going to follow that line straight across and do it like that, and I'm going to do the same on the other side as well. Okay. I'm going to make sure this area is completely cleaned off. There's no dust on it, no oils, no anything. Just polishing it up and making sure there's nothing else on here that might interfere with the adhering. I see a couple little straggly things. Let me get another chamois here and just make sure. Kind of like when you're doing a phone screen, you want to make sure the area is completely clean so you don't get any bubbles or anything. And unfortunately, by doing that, what I just did, it causes some static that does attract more dust, so it's like a never-ending cycle. Let me get my scissors. I'm going to cut off the front one. That's a little wonky. And see if that's going to still make it. And that last one just makes, you know, I'm going to leave the last one. I'm going to go right from here and make that last one land right there. I'm just going to go right to the end. And that looks very good. Okay, so we're going to go like that and try to keep it straight. Now what you have to do is peel this off. Oh, we lost one. Carefully peel it off. And then apply it as gingerly as you can here. And I'm trying to line this up so that it goes straight across right to the back. Just going to lay it down. Now the real key here is trying to make sure you don't get any air bubbles in here, and that's always a problem. Now what I like to do is, if you've ever done a phone screen, they usually give you a little piece of plastic. This is a piece of plastic I just took from the Armor that I'm going to use to just press this down, because you want this back material, this backing material, to be able to be pulled off. So you want to make sure this is adhering as best as possible to the plastic underneath, so you can carefully pull this off at an angle. Get that on. Just working it all the way around, just making sure it's adhering to the plastic. Okay, now I think that's good enough. Do it one more time, just making sure it's really just sticking down. And then what you do is, at like a 90-degree angle, straight back, you try to peel this off and hope that the tube stripes stay behind. And they are, see that? And I see one that has a little bubble in it, not too bad, right here. I'm just going to, with my finger, just try to work that out. And I think that pretty much got it. Okay, so that's the tube stripes on that side. I'll do the right. These are a little different. These you just peel up and stick right on, so I'm just going to take this one here by hand and just stick that on. So this one I like to start from the top and work my way down here. So let me just start from the top. Me again with my chamois, just get off any little hairs or any little things I see there. I see a couple little pieces of fabric and hairs there. Oh, it's better now. As you can see, this one doesn't actually fit. It's going to be a little bigger. That's fine. I'm just going to fold it over on the bottom here, because that's going to go under That's going to go under the Frown, the trim, the helmet trim. I might even use a razor blade and cut that off so it stays nice and flat. Okay, I'll do the other one on the other side. Again, let me wipe it, make sure. That's a little too much over that side, hold on. Okay, I got a terrible bubble right in the middle, so I'm going to peel it back off and I'm just going to redo it. And that's way off, I'm going to have to redo the whole thing. That looks better. But I got a bubble again, so I'm going to have to work that out. Oh, got a bubble. And a bubble. Okay, we got some extra material. I think I'm going to use a razor blade and cut that off. I don't like that. I think it might interfere with the frown tip here. Just carefully just razor in that. Just going to take off that extra material here. I'm going to do the same on the other side. I don't like that extra piece there. I'll just tuck that one in. Okay, let's do the tears, and then we'll do the other tube stripe, and then we're pretty much done. We just have to polish up the helmet, and then do the eyes. The eyes, again, for me, it's the very last thing I do is the eyes. Now let's size up the other side to make sure we're matching. I want to do about the same thing. And for this one, I think we're going to be able to use every single stripe. I think I'm going to cut off just the top one, just the first one. But the rest of them, I think we're good. And I save these just in case when I happen to lose one, I'll be able to stick one back in there. Okay, now match that angle. I'm going to have to go right like that. Let me make sure the spacing is the same. The spacing is a little different, so I'm going to cut this. Let me see on this one. No, the spacing is actually about right. Just make sure. The spacing is actually about right on both. I'm going to start there and end right back here. Okay, so let me peel that off very carefully. Again, let me wipe down this area and make sure there's nothing else on here. No oils, no anything else. Oh, I screwed that one up a tad. Let me see if I can get a little further back. Like that. A little further up. I think we got it. Okay, now we're just going to work this. Again, it's hard. It's a curved surface, so you want to like work it slowly so you don't get any air bubbles, which I just did, but hopefully I can get that out. Let me just look at it, make sure it looks that even. That does look pretty good. Okay, now we're going to use our little piece of plastic and just work that in there. Now we're going to really just send it home and push it down, so that we're pushing it down and making it in here to the plastic. Hopefully getting any air bubbles out of here. And I'm going to pull it at a 90-degree angle here. See if they're sticking, which they look like they are. Okay, that looks good. Looks good, they look pretty even. We'll do the tiers. And we'll make sure we get anything out of there. And this one, you got to kind of fit in that shape there. As best you can here. These are always tough. They don't always match. That's the left one. That's the left one. That's terrible. Let me see if we can get that, work that out. Work this bubble out, this big bubble right there. Okay, that looks pretty good now. This is my finger, I'm trying to work out any air bubbles. It's kind of a weird shape. Still a little air bubble down here. I might have to use a pin to get that out. The tip of a razor blade here. Just make a little slit and you can press out the air, which I think I was able to just do there. A little bunching up in the corner there, but I think it's going to be passable. That's good. Okay, I'll do the other one. Hopefully that one will fit a little better. Again, the tiers are always problematic. They vary greatly between helmets. And this helmet's a little bit probably different than what these were intended for. Let's just see if this one fits a little better. And that's a terrible bubble in the middle, so we can work that out. No. Well, this one's terrible. I'm going to have to pull this all out. So my biggest fear is getting one of these screwed up, because then you got to buy a whole new set. Let me see. Get that out. Okay. Carefully, because they also stretch, so you want to make sure you're doing them. You don't stretch it out too much. Start from the middle here this time and see if that works a little better. That's not going to reach. Let's see how that works. Okay, I think that's going to work a lot better. I just got to work out that last kink. One little kink I can live with because it's such a weird shape. A little kink on the bottom, but I can live with that. Get that bubble out of the top. On the side, and there's a little bubble in the middle. The little bubble in the middle I'm going to just poke. push out. We can. Okay, there we go. Okay, that's looking pretty decent. There's one little bend on the bottom, but nobody's ever going to see that. Okay, we'll just do the back. And we're all set. So this is the right. This is from looking from the front of the helmet. So if this is the right, then this should go on this side here. I don't see how this is going to fit in here. Let's hold that up to the light. Let's wipe that down, make sure it's all clean. Carefully working that, trying not to get any bubbles trapped. Got one little bubble trap there I'm going to have to work on. And one little bubble here, which I might be able to get out my fingernail. No. Maybe. That one's going to have to be cut. That one we got out. And there's one right in the middle. Okay, we got two little bubbles. I don't have a pin handy, but I'm going to just use the tip of the razor blade just to poke a little hole where these are. With my finger, you can just magically take that out. Okay, that looks really good. Now let's do the last one. Just trying to find the tippy point and trying to line it up. So I start from the middle and then like work my ways out towards the ends and try to squeeze all the air out as I go. Again, if you do a wet application, you can use some soapy water and do this and then press it and then wait for it to dry. I pretty much have luck with this. I rarely get any significant bubbling. If again, you clean the area first, take your time, try to work the rubber, the decals, and get any kind of little bubbles out. To get one little bubble that I'm not going to be able to get, I'm just going to nick it. I'm making a microscopic hole in the decal and then squeezing out any of the air that's in that bubble. I try to minimize that as much as possible, but sometimes it's necessary to get a nice clean application. Okay, so that looks great. So we're on our way here. Going to take off these magnets. I was putting in some, I put some snap plates in the helmet for a strap, which I can do during the speed up video. And that's going to be done along with the visor. But before I do the visor, I'm going to clean it. I'm also going to leave this off before I clean it. And then I'm going to clean all the other parts of the helmet, of the armor, before I do the final assembly and sizing up and everything that I'm going to do with the armor. Okay, now to do this, basically you need 2 rags. You need one rag that you're going to use to put your Novus polish on, and you have another rag that you're going to use to put the to wipe off the Novus polish after it's dried for a few minutes. And you'll see the difference. You can see that this looks kind of scratched. There's some fingerprints all over it, all kinds of other little inconsistencies. Once I hit this with the Novus polish, it's going to look a lot better. And I'll give you kind of an example of what that's going to look like, and then I'll move on to the other parts. Just a few other things I've been working on just on the side is I also did finish up the boxes that came with the Walt Trooper Factory Kit, the ones that were smaller, just so I have them in case I do decide to use them. I put some Velcro in here and some snap plates. I'm going to put a strap and then some Velcro in here so that these can adhere to each other, but it's still undoable. I can undo it and get back to the strap if anything happens to it or need to change the length. So those I'm going to be finishing up as well. But let's get started with the Novus polish. Now also with Novus polish, you should know that it is classified as a dangerous chemical. It's a cancer-causing chemical. And it's not the chemical itself, it's the residue and it's the powder that gets airborne after you use it. So I try to take precautions. I sometimes even wear a face mask, which I won't now, but I will when I do the rest of the armor because I'm going to be doing a lot of it. And I really would prefer not to breathe in all that dust from the Novus polish. Basically what I do is I just take the Novus polish, put a generous helping on whatever I'm working on, and you basically work this around the item just like you would car wax. You kind of go in little circles, you get a little piece of this fabric, you kind of work it around and you just spread it all around the helmet. And that's what I'm going to do. You don't have to worry too much about the decals. You'll notice I'm going to avoid putting it directly on the decals, but even though they've just been applied, this doesn't really affect the decals in any way. So I'm just going to go around them, but I'm not going to worry about them too much. I put a very generous helping on and just kind of spread it around and get a nice thin coating across the entire helmet. You don't have to worry about the paint, you don't have to worry about anything, but I like to do this before I put the lenses in because if you get this stuff on the lenses, it does leave a little residue on the lenses, and you'd like to try to avoid that if you can. Because then the lenses will get scratched, so the lenses won't look correct, and you'll have a mess on your hands. So you just kind of work this around. You kind of work in circles. I try to get every space that's visible. Again, I'm not worrying too much about the decals. I'm avoiding them, but I'm not worried too much because in general this stuff doesn't really affect the decals very much. I do try to avoid the paint on the screws, but everywhere else I generously just start rubbing it around and trying to make little circles all over the helmet. What this does is this Novus polish fills in some of the minor scratches. So if you have little scratches, this will take it right out. If you have much deeper scratches, you might have to get the other stages of Novus polish. There's a step 1 and a step 3. I don't ever use those. I just use all step 2. I have like a bottle lasts me about a year, and for any little polishing I'm doing, I just use the step 2, and I don't take off any more material. I just use this to fill in any little cracks that or scratches that show up. So basically I'm just working this around. I am avoiding the rubber on the bottom because it's not going to do anything to that to help it, but I do go right to where that is. And as you do it, you'll notice that it starts drying. Once you start spreading it thinner and thinner and thinner and getting it in the grooves and getting it around the helmet, and you'll see like a coating develop on it. And that's what you want. That's really what you're waiting for. You're waiting for that coating to develop so that you can then wipe off the coating. And that's where the magic happens, and it leaves a nice shine behind and a nice coating across the entire helmet. And that's what we want to get to at some point when we're done spreading this around. So we're almost there. I can feel it starting to dry. As I'm working this around, I'm just making sure I didn't miss any spots I want to hit. just keep working it around, Any of the spots that I know have some little scratches, I'm trying to hit a little harder. And especially in the top here, I know is very problematic. Okay, I'm going to let that dry for a few minutes, and I'm going to start working on the belt. Now again, as you saw in the last episode when I was working on the belt, I left it connected with Chicago screws, which is going to make this cleaning procedure much easier, because now I can just unscrew these Chicago screws, take the plastic part of the belt off, and shine that up. And I also want to shine up the belt boxes. So I'll get these off and start working on that as well. I only did these hand tight, so I'll be able to pop these right off. And of course this one's a little tight, so I'm going to have to work this one a little more. For whatever reason, this one's a little tighter. Okay, so now that comes right off, the belt comes right off the other belt. And I can take off the belt boxes as well, which I'm going to decide again which ones I'm going to use, whether I'm going to use these Novos ones or whether I'm going to use the ones that came with the kit. So I'm going to put that aside. Use a little more polish on here. You can see that has some little scratches. After this is on there and it dries and I wipe it off, it's like a miracle. It really hides the scratches. In some cases the scratches are still there, but it's so shiny that it kind of masks a lot of the little imperfections in the plastic and makes it look incredible. So I'm just going to generously put that on there. I'm not going to worry as much about the back. I'll put a little on the back here. And I'll do the same with the other box. I still have this pretty wet here. I'm just going to keep using what I got on this rag here. And again, a little on the back here, just a little bit. But the thing I really want to work on is this, because this was really scratched. Had a bunch of different nicks in it that I'm hoping the Novus polish will take out. So I'm going to use a good amount on here. And just spread it around and see how it comes out after it dries. Let me get anything sharp out of the way here. Trying to get in all the nooks and crannies, every little piece. And when I do the rest of the armor, you'll see I go crazy. I go put it on every little spot, really generously, let it dry, and then wipe it all off, and it's unbelievable the shine that you get on the armor. So it's a combination of the application and then the rubbing off. The rubbing and buffing is really where you see the difference, and it's unbelievable sometimes. And no, I do not own stock in Novus polish. You can get it on Amazon. You can also get it at Trooper Bay. What I do like about Trooper Bay is a lot of the ones on Amazon you have to buy all 3 steps. As I said, I never use all 3 steps. I only pretty much use step 2 is the one that I've found works the best and gets the best results and doesn't take away any of the plastic. Doesn't really, it's not non-abrasive and just adds that coating, like a wax coating. So I recommend only using the 2, which is this stuff here. It's Novus Fine Scratch Remover number 2. So what I do is I have like 3 bottles here, 2 that are almost done, and this brand new one I just got from Trooper Bay. What I like with Trooper Bay is you could just buy the 1 bottle. You don't have to buy the whole set of 3 because I never use them anyway. I had tried them years ago and didn't see much difference with the number 1. And number 3 scares me a little because I think it does take off a little of the plastic, and I really don't want to do that. Yes, I'm getting it on all the little crevices here. I'm not worried about the back at all. Just worried about the front facing areas and these tops. In the little crevices. And the key is getting this off afterwards and shining it and buffing it, and then it looks absolutely incredible. Okay, so this is starting to get nice and thin. And I think at this point the helmet's pretty much gotten all white now, so it's just about time to wipe that off. And you get a nice clean rag. I use like a towel that I'm going to end up throwing away when I'm all done with it. And you'll notice now it's got like a white film on it. When it gets like that, you can start rubbing it off, and that's when you really get started. And you'll notice, you'll know you're done when you get all the white stuff off. So now you just start working in circles and try to wipe that film off. And you'll start noticing just how much of a shine this polish gives the armor. It's really amazing. I'm just doing a first pass, and then I'm going to have to go over it a little more detailed to make sure I get every little nook and cranny. Just doing a first pass, getting some of the excess off here, and you can see it's starting to take off some material. The polish itself has kind of a powderness to it that you start seeing. And that's the stuff that's, from what I understand, is not good for you, so you really want to try to avoid that as much as possible. And again, when I do the rest of the armor, I'm not going to take any chances. I'm going to make sure I'm wearing an N95 mask the entire time, just for extra safety precaution. But for this demonstration, I'll let it slide. Again, that's a first pass, so there's going to be a lot of nooks and crannies that are still going to have this stuff in there that you're going to have to work on. But you'll notice even after this first pass, it's already starting to shine like almost like a mirror. It's really nice. And again, a lot of the scratches are still there. Some of the deeper ones are still going to be there, but it's going to mask them, and it's going to be so shiny otherwise that you're not even going to notice them as much. So we're getting to that point now that I think we can start doing some detailing and go around some of the little nooks and crannies and get the rest of this material off of there. So let's look at the top here. We still got a lot of material on the top here I got to take off. Okay, so I'm going to start using the other side, and now I'm going to go over it and just kind of detail it, make sure I get every little nook and cranny, and really work it the entire way around. I'm just using my fingers, getting in little crevices, making sure I go right up to the edges and get every little piece off there I can get. You can see that, look at that shine there, it's amazing. Getting all the little nooks and everything. And then if you see any spots that are problematic, that still have some scratches, that you want to try to mask a little better, you can always use another little bit in that area. You might see me doing that when I do the armor. I'll stop and then I'll put a little more in a specific spot just to make sure I'm hitting that area as best as possible. I get under here. And what I should have done is probably done behind these mic tips before I put the mic tips in, so I might take them off and do that later because I see some spots behind there that could use a little polishing. Okay, well, I think we're just about there. Just going over it one more time, making sure I get every little area. Now the only thing is, after you do this, of course, every little fingerprint, every little mark, every little spot that you touch is going to leave a mark or a fingerprint. So I usually bring a chamois with me, with my armor, just to shine up any areas that I want to take off fingerprints. And I imagine with the Shadow Trooper it's going to be even worse. I've had people tell me that they basically show every little teeny inconsistency and fingerprint and everything you can imagine. Okay, and as you see, it didn't affect the stickers at all. It went right over the stickers, but you try to avoid them when you can. Okay, so that's looking really good. You can see the I don't know if you can notice the difference there on camera, but it looks like sparkling now compared to what it looked like when we first finished it. So now we have a really shiny, nice helmet. I do have a bad scratch right on the frown here that unfortunately I don't think this is gonna help much. But I'm gonna put a little in there. I'm gonna do it one more time, just in that one little area. It's gonna hit this one little spot. See if I can shine that up a little more. I think that's just doomed. It's a bad scratch. I got when I was doing the frown cutting. One of the tools slipped and nicked that a little, but I think it's not much I can do about it now. But see, with it that shiny, it's negligible. It's hard to even point it out or see it. Okay, so I think we got all the little crevices, and I think it's coming out really nice. So we'll just do some more finishing work on that. I'll do the eyes. I'm going to put back in this trim now, and make sure we get that in place. I think with the helmet padding I put in and the Velcro, it's going to keep that in place really nicely. So I just have to make sure this stays in here. Now again, you can put some glue in here if you want into this track. I don't like to do that unless I absolutely have to. I might just do it on the ends just to secure it and make sure it doesn't come out. But usually this stays in just with pressure once you get it in there appropriately. And I have it cut exactly to the right size so that I have to kind of work it to get it in there. Got that straight across there, nice and straight. Again, I like it a little lower down. Some people like it a little higher. I like it right against the eyes like that. Already I'm seeing fingerprints with my gloves on. So this is going to be a nightmare having to keep this clean. But it's looking really good right now. Again, made another fingerprint already. Oh my god. This is going to be terrible. Okay, but it's looking very nice. We got a nice sheen on it. Okay, I'm going to put this over to the side. I'm going to do the belt, and then I'm going to go ahead with the rest of the armor. And then we're going to do the very final steps, which is the final assembly. Putting it on, making sure that everything fits correctly, making sure that the straps are in the right places, and then we're also going to do some foam. You can put foam pieces in certain key areas to make the armor a little more comfortable to wear. And I'm going to show you where I put mine in the areas. Usually it's in the front of the shins, it's on the thighs in a specific spot, and in the forearm and in the bicep in a specific spot. And I'll show you where I'm going to put those. And what I do is I use air conditioner foam, and I put that, put Velcro, fabric Velcro on the back of that, and then use the hook Velcro in the armor to secure it in place. And that way it's replaceable and removable if it ever gets icky after being in your costume for a while and getting sweaty and being exposed to different elements. When it starts breaking down or starts getting a little degraded, you could always replace it pretty easily. So that's why I use that. And it's also a very cheap solution. The air conditioning padding only costs about $7, and the Velcro costs a little more, probably about $5 or $10 worth of Velcro, but that's minimal for the sake of comfort and keeping the armor very tight against your body and looking good. I'm trying to get in little crevices here, making sure we're getting everything off here. And that's looking very good. It's starting to really shine now. The hardest part is getting this off and making sure you get all of it off so that it's nice and shiny, because where you don't get it off, it's going to look terrible. You have to make sure you get it all off wherever you have it with a nice chamois, and just kind of wipe it off. And use a material like a chamois or a towel that's not going to scratch the armor or be too abrasive on it as well. Okay, that's looking very good. Okay, so that's got a nice shine to it now. Shake that out and see if any more I can do here. That's looking very good. Looking very shiny. And we'll just do the belt boxes and then we're done. That should take 2 seconds. There we go. Again, if you look closely, you can see the scratches, but now it's so shiny, it's unbelievable. It looks just like brand new. That's that belt box, and we'll finish the last one here. Go. It's looking very nice. Okay, I'll continue on with the rest of it. I'll do that as a speed up video. It's probably going to be about an hour, hour and a half of just me doing that. And then we'll get on to the final steps. We'll do the visor, and then we'll probably do the final assembly and see how everything fits together and how everything comes together in the end. I want to thank everybody for joining me, and hopefully we'll be done in the next episode or two and have a fully finished costume. Thanks, everybody.